From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank my parents and my sister, who are always there to help me when required and push me towards the goal. Whatever I've achieved today, it's only because of the help that they have provided and all the support that they've given. If I ever needed help in any topic or in any mock or anything that I required, they were always there, even apart from the preparation for management exams. My sister herself cracked CET a year ago and she got a 99.97 percentile. And even with her rigorous schedule at JBIMS, she was still able to guide me through it and make it much easier for me to get the same score. For that, I'm eternally grateful and I'm extremely happy that I could make them proud. Thank you.
Hi, Anay. We start our chat with champions with Anay Dave, who has scored a 99.99 percentile in CET. He is also a good table tennis player, having represented Maharashtra quite a few times, being a top 30 ranked table tennis player in the country. So I think that's where the dedication comes in, I believe, Anay. Yeah. Engineer, right, from NM, that is Mukesh Gandhi Institute. And I believe your sister also is there in Bajaj last year. Perfect, Anay. So congratulations first for scoring a 99.99. How do you feel about it?
Firstly, thank you so much. I want to thank you for the advice that you've given throughout the period, and thank you for the wishes. It feels surreal. I think it was one thing that I've been trying to get for such a long time, and I've been working towards it. And to finally achieve it, I think it feels extraordinary, and it is just a great place to be in.
So when you wrote the exam, did you believe you will score a 99.99, or did you believe you will score high, or what is it?
So when I wrote the exam, I knew that I had done well. I knew that my paper had gone well, but I did not expect a good rank. And very honestly, sir, I've always believed that mocks are not something that you rely on, in the sense that when you take mocks, that the score is not what matters. So what I'm trying to say is that when you take a mock, if you get a good score, you still think it's not the final exam, so you aren't happy with it. Then when you get a bad score, you're still not satisfied because you need to do better. I think after the final mock, I was so happy that the final paper, I was so happy that, wow, this is finally done and I've actually achieved the target I'd set out to be. I think that was a great feeling, and I did not know that I would come 99.99. I thought I would have a good rank, but not here, not at this level.
Great. So can you run us through your journey of CET? How did it go about? How did it pan about as such?
So from the start, as you said, I have a sister who is already in Janwalal Bajaj. So I had a great base in the sense that I knew what I had to do, what I had to focus on. And since the start, I knew that what I'm good at is speed. I like speed-based exams and I like doing things fast and solving them quickly and going through questions at a faster speed and just going through a larger number of questions. So my focus since the start has always been taking speed test exams. And whenever I solve a question, it used to be trying to reduce the number of steps I take, or trying to do everything mentally, or trying to find better methods to find the same answer, or using options to get there. Since the first day, I have always been trying to do this. It started off with books, but whenever I used to solve a question, even in mocks, outside the mocks, wherever it would always be with just this in mind. So that I had a good base in the sense that I had a sister. So I had a lot of guidance from her and great mentors that I had. So that was a lot of thanks to them.
Okay, so what do you think helped more, solving mocks or practicing questions? So which was a defining factor?
So I think I would attribute it to both of them, but I think the most important thing was analyzing the mocks. It was spending time in the analysis and understanding where you're going wrong, because it doesn't matter how many mocks you take. And so you have a great series on this, the mistakes that we make, the CET mistakes that we make while taking mocks, or the common mistakes during prep. These were things that I always used to look at, and that is what I used to emulate. So I used to write down what my goal was before taking mocks or before doing anything important. So I used to write down, let's say, if I'm taking a mock, I would write down my aim for the mock. So let's say I was targeting 160 attempts. If I was trying to finish a particular section in 30 minutes or a particular section in 15 minutes or whatever is the case, if I'm focusing the particular order, before the mock would start, I'd spend 5 minutes just writing down what my aim was. If I'm going for a particular accuracy, if I'm going for a higher number of questions, exactly what I wanted. So it was more about this and the analysis later. In the analysis part, what I used to do was I had a full Excel sheet with all the mistakes that I'd made. So I had the mock and the mistakes that I was making, the chapters I was making them in. This is probably because of my computer science background that is there, which I really like the data analytics, and I really like extracting as much information as you can from the data you have. So I'd always be looking at the marks per minute, which on your portal is also very nicely explained, the marks per minute that you require in sections and everything that is there. And just finding out where else you can get those few marks. It is just about that. It is about analyzing. So if I had to give credit to one thing, it was was the analysis that has helped me more than the number of mocks or the practice. Although those are extremely important and you must practice as much as you can.
So how many hours you give for CET per day? So if I say, what are the number of hours that is required to crack the examination?
So it's a little difficult to quantify because I had a base in aptitude and all these exams because I knew I'd like these things. So even my engineering college we had math and we always used to dabble in all of these things. Even the logic circuitry, we used to use that in computers. So we had a lot of these things that we used to do. But if I had to quantify it, then I think every day I would be solving around 2 to 2.5 hours, as much as the mock would require. On some days where I get more time from college, so my day used to look like 9 to 6 college. We had extreme hours in college. We used to have 9 to 6 college, and after that we would have some exam coming up or some assignments due. So we would always be busy with that. Our college is infamous for having a huge amount of hours that we have to work through. So through that, if you have to work, it was around 2 to 3 hours that I would put in at the end. Sometimes even more based on where the mock score is and how I'm doing and how much more I need to work on. I'm sure I spent more hours logging. I'm just not able to quantify it correctly right now, but it took a lot of hours to do.
So were there stages where you felt demotivated, scores going down or not working out? And at that stage, how did you keep yourself motivated?
So I think there was never a stage where I had poor scores, but there was definitely a variation of scores that were happening. So if in one mock I would get a 140, the other mock would be 110. It would, in 2 days, consecutive days, I would just go from a 140 to 110, and my entire mindset would change. Now this is what I decided that I had to control. I decided that I have to make sure that this is not happening, because many times. So a couple of years ago, the topper of CET, I think, was at 130 or 120, something like that. And the next year it was again at 165. Now in the same paper, all of them got through, all the top ones got through. So if the mock is difficult, there are many instances where you can't get a higher score. So the focus in the number that is there, I think, is misplaced, because you tend to, your entire temperament becomes based on the number that you get. And I think that is something that I prevented myself from doing. And many times you can't get more than a particular number. If that's why you have to look at the analysis, that if there are things that you have to leave, you have to leave. You cannot score marks in that. So it is not about getting a number. It is not the score that matters. It is just finding out the faults. And there were many times that I found a huge list of faults that I had to work on and everything. It was just the dream that if I work on this correctly, I have enough amount of motivation and self-belief that I'll be able to go there. So it was just the temperament that is required to do it. It was just that. And for motivation, so I always had people like you who were always putting out so much information about the exam, and there was so much history in the exam where you could just see everything that was there about how people have done. You can't, in CET especially, you can't fake results. You can't say that you aren't, the admit card you can't change. It is public to everyone, so you know that a person has a stand, and including my sister. So even she was there. So we always had people who knew what to do. For motivation, that was my main source.
Okay, what made a difference? I mean, there's so many people preparing for the examination, putting in as much hard work as what you are doing maybe. But what made a difference between you and the others? So what made you get that 99.9 and what a lot of people did not get?
So I think one very important thing that people tend to miss out on is the last day mentality. The temperament that you require on the last day. You should be ready that even if something goes wrong, you need to be sure that you will do your best, irrespective of what that is. And I think people tend to get flustered by mocks based on how they score. One thing that I definitely did was practice a lot, and that is the practice and analysis. I keep coming back to this because these were two things that have helped me throughout the preparation, where I kept doing this. And if I had to be honest, I think it's the analysis that has helped me the most.
What was the strategy for the examination? So if you wrote a CET examination, what was the basic strategy that you followed? And did you change it drastically or something different? Yes.
Since I've taken a large number of mocks, I had started off with a very different strategy, and I've ended up with a very different strategy. And there was a full journey that I've gone through based on each and every mock. I would refine what I'm trying to do. I would change which section I'm targeting, which marks I'm targeting, where I need to improve. And that was a big procedure that I had to go through. And that was only because of the analysis that I was doing. In this sense, the hunger that I had, the drive that I had to reach a place was due to the fact that I wanted a strategy which would be fine even if the exam was difficult, even if the exam was easy. Because many times what happens is you prepare yourself for a hard exam. So you prepare yourself for an easy exam, but then if you get surprised on the last day, and if you let the exam get to your head, you are not going to perform nicely on the last day because you will not be ready for that. my strategy was always to so the entire reason of the analysis was to reach a point where the strategy would be fine for all. So in that sense, what I decided to do was I would first take the easy questions. I would just start off solving the easy questions and finish all of them. And I would use the marks per minute concept to get through the questions that I had to do. So initially I started off with visual reasoning because that was where I was the strongest and the fastest. So I think I took around 15 minutes to finish that section, all 25 questions, and that is what my aim was. And in 15 minutes, I have to finish it. After that, I took verbal and I decided to do this in 2 rounds because what used to happen was when I read RC, I used to become much slower. If I'm reading a huge amount of text, even if in CET it is not very important to read the exact details because the questions are not that related to what is there, the meaning of it, and it's more on the top. Even then I would spend a huge amount of time reading just because I was slow in that sense, and I would just get bogged down by how big it was or everything. And this was initially. So I made it a point to first finish off the easy questions, all the sentence corrections, the single lines, the vocabulary questions that were there. I would finish all of that in the start. In the first 10-15 minutes I tried to do that. In the next 20 minutes it would be RCs, the para completions, and all the big paragraphs, everything that is there, all of that will be left for later. So in this sense, I had a very good control over where I'm spending time because it would always be the easy ones first. Now my aim was in the first 50 minutes, irrespective of what happens on the last day, 75 questions have to be done because I wanted to reach that target. So I have 25 of abstract and 50 of verbal. I'm done with the 75 and 50 minutes. That was my target. After this, I would take the logical section where I would again go through the easy questions. I take the easy questions, all the singlets and all the easy blood relations, all the coding, decoding, if it's a single set. I would finish all of that in the start. And I think so. You've also recommended this many times that just take the easy ones and finish those off. Leave the tough ones, puzzles and everything. So I would leave all of that for later in the case fields that are there. Then I would finish the quant. So in quant, what used to happen was, being an engineer, I have an inherent love for quant. I find maths beautiful, the way it adds up, the way it works out, and all the calculations that are there. I always used to find it really intriguing, and I used to love solving the question. So many times I would solve a question for extended amounts of time, where I would get stuck on a question because I found it so interesting. And I would waste the entire paper, or I would waste so many more marks that I would lose on. I would lose on marks because I didn't have the will to stop solving a question at times. So that was something I really had to tell myself. And in quant, I had kept a limit that I'll spend only 30 minutes on this. How easy, however easy it was or however difficult it was, only 30 minutes and we are done. After that, I'd go to the puzzles and solve. That was my basic strategy, because in this, I feel like even if you have a difficult paper, you'll have a lot more time in the end to solve the puzzles and the difficult questions that are there. So you can easily manage it for whatever paper is there. So that was the basic strategy that is there.
Perfect. And any tips that would want to give to the CET students? So people are preparing for the CET, next CET. What tips would you give?
So I think I have a couple of things that I'd like to say. And this, the first would be that you really need to practice. And when it comes to practice, there was this quote that I read that it's not practice makes perfect. It is perfect practice makes perfect. Because at every stage in the CET exam, you need to realize that there are two things you have to do: increase your accuracy or increase your speed. And it has to be a balance between the two. It's not like you can just focus on one thing. It has to be a balance between the two, and you have to keep doing that over and over again. It was just this practice that has helped me out in finding out those small areas where I could change things and make a big difference in my score, or focusing on some chapters that would change a lot. Second thing that I like to say is to put into perspective, then again, I'm reiterating this, the number that the people focus on, the number that 140 or 145 or that number that is needed to get into JP. I think that number is it is great to have a number. It is great to set a target, but I think that target is more with yourself than with anything else. That is you with the mock, with how the mock is, because if the paper changes or the final paper changes, it is only on that. It is not based on what the score is, because if the final paper changes, your score is going to change. Just focus on getting the most out of each and every paper that you take and trying to do the best you can, which leads me to my third point. Every time I meet my grandfather, he always tells me this one thing, that whatever you do in life, put your best foot forward. After that, everything is taken care by God or whoever you believe in. But that's one thing that has always been my case. I just trust myself that if I am putting my best foot forward, eventually I will be at a place where I deserve to be. That is something that has always stayed with me throughout my journey in life and in CET. That is one very important thing. And the fourth thing would be that do not let the exam get bigger than you. Many times what happens is that people tend to focus so much on the CET preparation or on management and entrance exams that they tend to leave everything, and they tend to also not work on their mental health or their fitness and all other things that are important in life. I used to devote 30 to 45 minutes every day working out or doing something else, or playing the guitar, or as you said, so playing table tennis. I would always keep something or the other there, because I've realized that if I just do something else. When I come back to this, I have a fresh mind. I am much more focused and able to do the same thing in a shorter amount of time, which is exactly the aim of CET. So especially in this exam, it is very, very important that you have a fresh mind when you're solving things. And again, coming back to the first point, it is just practice and analysis. That is all that is there in this.
Good. So you keep playing table tennis regularly now? You play at home, you play, where do you play?
So I have a gymkhana close to my house, so I used to go there, and plus I used to play in college. So I have a couple of friends who I used to always play with. Means there used to be times where I used to spend the entire day playing without feeling tired. We used to just keep practicing, especially before tournaments. You would just be playing throughout the day, and then I'd be tired the entire. I would not be able to study that day, but I would enjoy playing so much that the next few days I would be very focused on getting to the target.
So you still play competitive table tennis, or what is it?
So not at the level that I used to, but I do play college level, and I've won a lot of competitions in that, but not at the state level, Maharashtra national level that I used to play.
So when did you leave the Maharashtra level table tennis competition?
I think I stopped playing table tennis in the 9th standard because that is when I realized that I didn't want to do that as a career. I couldn't pursue it completely as a career. After that, I decided that I'll only be playing state level and college levels, but I decided to continue playing it because I really enjoyed it and I was good at it. So it was not a bad thing to do. I mean, I loved playing it, but also that. And the fact that I played at a competitive level was what helped me get the fighting spirit rather. And that is what helped me on the last day, because on the final day, it is just that temperament that matters. That if you don't win the match, you don't get anything, you don't win anything. If the last point is not yours, or if you aren't doing that, you aren't winning the match. That is exactly how it is on D-Day and CET. That is exactly how it was for me, and I had the spirit in my head that even if I lose 5 to 10 minutes, even if I miss out on a couple of marks or a couple of questions that I think I would get, I still have to keep doing it because it's not over until the last point and it's not over until the last mark. That is one thing that has always been with me, and I think this is something that everyone must put in themselves before going for the test.
Anay, thanks very much for the interview. Thanks for your time. I'm sure whatever your advice you're given to the students, they will take it and benefit from the same. Amazing experience. All the best for your journey to JBIMS, and do well. I'm sure you'll do well in the career. Yeah, thanks for being there.
So I would really like to thank you for this opportunity and for always being there. I've told my sister, I've told my parents so many things about you, that there is this really wonderful sir on YouTube who is there throughout the entire day. He has 2.5 lectures or 2.5 hour lectures on Unacademy. Then he's taking his own live lectures over here. And throughout the entire journey, you've constantly put up information, lectures spanning the entirety of it. And I don't think there is anyone with more expertise on this exam. So if at anything, so thank you very much to you. And even your mocks, they were always such a challenge. It used to be a very big refreshment when I used to take your mocks, and the questions that you used to put in those, I think that is what prepared me very nicely for the last day, because in the mocks there were so many variations that were there. In one mock you had to focus on speed and just finish every question you can, and the marks would show that. In many mocks the puzzles would be so difficult that you couldn't spend time solving those, and if you spend time on that, you would not survive. It was just this variation that was there that really prepared me for that, and so thank you very much for this. I think that was very, very helpful for my entire journey. So I just had to say this one thing. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Anay. Thanks for giving the time. Yes.